The chief executive says the Amber Health Code will not be scrapped in the short run. A new truck route linking Qingyi and Lantau Island being planned. And last-minute campaigning ahead of today's U.S. midterm elections. Hello and welcome to TVB News. Hong Kong today reported 4,649 new COVID-19 infections, 399 of which were imported. 4 more COVID patients died. Meanwhile, Chief Executive John Lee stressed the city's mask mandate and the vaccine path health code system will not be scrapped in the short run, as they are effective risk control measures. Christy Khan reports.
Over the past 2 weeks, the city experienced the long-awaited normalcy for a while. Financiers attending the 3-day Global Financial Leaders Investment Summit were exempted from vaccine pass Amber Code restrictions, while spectators of the Hong Kong Rugby Sevens enjoyed their unmasked festivities at the stadium for 3 days. Yesterday, the government announced that inbound tour group travelers will also be allowed to go to tourist attractions and some regulated eateries even with their Amber Code. Speaking to reporters ahead of today's Executive Council meeting, Chief Executive Johnny noted that the special arrangements, for example, waiving certain anti-COVID rules for these events, were granted under one principle.
The principle that I have mentioned, I want to repeat again, is for activities, particularly large-scale with economic elements, and also international events, then we will, while controlling the risk, allow it to happen with specific plans.
Asked if there is a possibility to ask the Amber Code system, Lee reiterated that the city is still in the midst of risks.
We're not going to scrap the Amber Code system because for the Red Code and the Amber Code, it is a means for us to control risk.
He said the city still had around 4,000 to 6,000 COVID cases every day, meaning that the pandemic has never left. That's why the mask mandate will also remain in place because of the uncertainties of COVID, according to the CE. He also hinted that the government has no plans to switch to 0+0 from the current 0+3 scheme.
At the present moment, I think 0+3 has served the purpose of Hong Kong to the acceptable and anticipated extent, allowing a lot of activities to happen. And I've also indicated that the statistics indicating arrivals and departure at the airport is positive. There are more and more people coming to Hong Kong from overseas.
He said the authorities will further ease control measures in an orderly manner, adding that activities in Hong Kong will be given more freedom if the risk is under control. Christy Khan, TVB News.
Starting today, the public will have to register in advance for free COVID-19 tests provided by the government. Those who don't book in advance can also present the testing registration code on the Leave Home Safe mobile app for the free tests. A screenshot or a printout version of the testing registration code will also enable the holder to take the test free of charge. Children aged 15 or below, as well as people aged 65 or above, are not required to make prior bookings. In order to make the sample collection process faster, the government said the free COVID-19 tests will drop the nasal swab sample but keep the throat swab. Authorities are planning to build one more trunk route connecting Lantau and Qingyi. It is set to be constructed in parallel with the Qing Ma Bridge. The route is expected to open in 2033, but authorities have yet to reveal its estimated construction costs. Sharon Tang has more.
The government is looking into building another bridge that will connect Qingyi and Lantau and cross the Ma Wan and Cap Shing Mun fairways. The bridge is expected to be about 5.2 kilometers long and will be located to the south of the current Lantau link. Questions about why another bridge is needed have been raised, given that traffic on the Qingma Bridge is currently not that heavy. Authorities explained that Lantau Island's population is expected to surge, given there will be developments on the Khao Yi Chau artificial islands and in the Northwest New Territories. It is also estimated that peak hour traffic will worsen on Tuen Mun Road, Tai Lam Tunnel and Ting Khao Bridge if there are no new routes by 2036. But there are hopes the new link, together with the construction of Route 11, which will connect Qing Lung Tau and Lantau Island, could reduce traffic jams. The Highways Department says it will apply for funding from LegCo's Finance Committee for research and design works. However, there was no mention of the estimated cost of building the bridge in documents submitted by the authority to the District Council. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
The Housing Authority has published the price list for a new batch of home ownership scheme units. Some 9,000 flats from 7 housing projects are being put up for sale. The most expensive unit on offer this time around is at Kawa Court in North Point, a 457 square foot flat with a sea view priced at $5.31 million. The lowest priced unit is a 189 square foot flat at Cayenne Court in Kai Tak, selling at $1.25 million. Flat selection by applicants will begin next Tuesday. Meanwhile, the Housing Authority will resubmit 15 other units in Sha Tin and Fanling for sale. Overseas, in his final rally ahead of today's U.S. midterm election vote, U.S. President Joe Biden on Monday warned that a Republican victory could weaken the country's democratic institutions. Meanwhile, during a Republican rally in Ohio, former President Donald Trump once again hinted that he will launch a bid to return to the White House in 2024. Daniel Rowell tells us more.
During a final rally in Maryland ahead of the U.S. midterm elections, U.S. President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden sought drum support for the Democratic gubernatorial nominee Wes Moore and Senator Chris Van Hollen. Biden told a crowd at Bowie State University, a historically black college outside of Washington, D.C., that democracy was at risk and that this was the moment to defend it.
Back in August, I came to Rockville to kick off the campaign season with Wes. And we're here at Bowie to close it out with Wes and all of you. And let's be clear, this election is not a referendum, it's a choice. It's a choice between two very different visions of America.
Despite delivering on his 2020 presidential campaign promises to boost infrastructure and clean energy, Biden's latest approval ratings are low. Non-partisan midterm election forecasters predicted that the Republicans are likely to pick up roughly 25 seats in the 435-seat House of Representatives. This is more than enough to claim a majority. Analysts believe the GOP could also win the one seat they require to take control of the Senate. Republicans have blamed the Biden administration for rising inflation and crime, two of the biggest concerns among U.S. voters. Former U.S. President Donald Trump spent the last day before the vote campaigning in Ohio for Republican Senate candidate J.D. Vance. Vance, an author, venture capitalist, and one-time Trump critic, has embraced the America First positions popularized by the former president, including his isolationist foreign policy. During the rally, Trump said he will be making a big announcement next week in what appears to be another hint he will launch a bid to return to the White House in 2024.
I'm going to be making a very big announcement on Tuesday, November 15th at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida. This is the year we're going to take back the House, we're going to take back the Senate, and we're going to take back America. And in 2024, most importantly, we are going to take back our magnificent White House.
Trump's comments come as he faces a series of escalating legal challenges, including several investigations that could lead to indictments. They include the probe into hundreds of documents with classified markings that were seized by the FBI from his Mar-a-Lago club in Florida. That's in addition to ongoing state and federal inquiries into accusations he tried to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. Dan Orell, TVB News.
Twitter's new owner, Elon Musk, has used the platform to urge Americans to vote Republican at the midterm elections. This has raised concerns on whether Twitter will remain neutral and independent after his $44 billion takeover. Musk, the world's richest person and CEO of Tesla, has taken drastic measures since buying the company, including sacking half the staff. A critic of U.S. President Joe Biden's tax policy, Musk wrote, "Shared power curbs the worst excesses of both parties. Therefore, I recommend voting for a Republican Congress, given that the presidency is Democratic." It's the first time a major social media platform has explicitly taken sides in U.S. politics.
It raises concerns among corporate advertisers for sure, that he's making these strong pronouncements that may well affect the opinions of many who are going to be voting tomorrow in a major U.S. midterm election. And I don't think it's prudent, because he's going to force his point of view upon those postings, and it certainly invites the ragged edges of our society to also post inflammatory statements as well.
Russian businessman Yevgeny Prigozhin admitted that he had interfered in U.S. elections and stated he would continue doing so in the future. This marks the first such admission from a figure who has been formally implicated by Washington in efforts to influence American politics. In comments posted by the press service of his catering firm on Russia's Facebook equivalent, Prigozhin said, "We have interfered, we are interfering, and we will continue to interfere carefully, accurately, surgically, and in our own way as we know how to do." The remark came on the eve of the U.S. midterm elections. Prigozhin, who is often referred to as Putin's chef because his catering company operates Kremlin contracts, has been formally accused of sponsoring Russia-based troll farms that seek to influence U.S. politics. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said Washington was not surprised by Prigozhin's comments. Russian President Vladimir Putin said around 80,000 mobilized soldiers have been sent to Ukraine from the 300-plus called up since September 21st. In a meeting with the governor of the TVB region, Putin said only 50,000 troops were in combat units. The controversial mobilization saw thousands of young Russians flee the country to avoid conscription. In the U.S., the White House reiterated its support for Ukraine. This after a report that the U.S. has been secretly encouraging Ukraine to pursue peace talks. Meanwhile, as Russia continues to evacuate people from Kherson in the south, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky jumped on reports that Russian soldiers were lamenting losses in the east. He said enemy soldiers are finally giving thought after Russian journalists reported that Marines complained to a top general about 300 people killed, wounded, or missing. And still ahead after the break. The UN Secretary General calls for the phasing out of fossil fuels at the UN Climate Summit. Flight demonstrations at the Zhuhai Air Show. And an unusual lunar eclipse and occultation of planet Uranus. Welcome back. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres did not hold back as he addressed world leaders at the COP27 climate conference in Egypt. Guterres warned of impending global disaster if countries refuse to come together to bring down carbon emissions and move away from fossil fuels. Smaller countries, though, say they are being punished for the sins of developed nations, which they say are the main culprits of climate change. Nazvi Karim reports.
Channeling the anthemic lyrics of rock band AC/DC, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres put a climate spin on one of their most famous songs, Highway to Hell. Guterres painted a bleak picture of a catastrophic future for the planet in his attempt to shake leaders at the COP27 climate summit out of their apathy for environmental security.
We are on a highway to climate hell with our foot still on the accelerator. Acknowledge a harsh truth. Excellencies, this UN climate conference is a reminder that the answer is in our hands. And the clock is ticking. We are in the fight of our lives, and we are losing.
Guterres made no apologies for his near-defeatist bent, warning leaders of almost 200 countries that they must cooperate or perish. He said the world has progressed little since the 2015 Paris Agreement, where the long-term goal was to keep global temperatures from rising by more than 1.5 degrees Celsius, beyond which scientists say climate change risk would spin out of control. To succeed, the world must achieve net zero emissions by 2050, phase out the use of coal, and make sincere strides to reduce reliance on fossil fuels. But in a global landscape distracted by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, a major obstacle is the simple concept of supply and demand, as well as a sense of bitterness among the smaller countries who are not among the major emitters but suffer more from climate change fallout. Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, president of the United Arab Emirates, a key member of OPEC, said his country would continue to supply oil as long as the world needed it. Kenya's new president, William Ruto, also chair of the African Union, said the cost of climate change to the continent is estimated at around $50 billion a year, with hundreds of thousands of lives affected.
Africa contributes less than 3% of the pollution responsible for climate change, but is most severely impacted by the ensuing crisis. Africa, and it is therefore only fair and proper that this conference takes necessary measures to recognize Africa's special needs and circumstances under the Paris Agreement.
Pakistan suffered devastating floods in the summer, blamed on climate change, and expected to cost the country around $30 billion.
In my country,
Pakistani Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif said they would be seeking compensation from rich countries, who he says are the biggest emitters. He called for loss and damage funds for disaster-hit nations. Former US Vice President and longtime climate activist Al Gore empathized with nations such as Pakistan, saying the US and other major emitters have a credibility problem, adding it was time they moved past the era of fossil fuel colonialism. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
The China International Aviation and Aerospace Exhibition opened in Zhuhai today. An array of Chinese warplanes were on display, including the J-20 stealth fighter and the Yunyu-20 tanker aircraft. Sharon Tang reports.
An aerobatics performance formed by 6 J-10 jets marked the opening of the exhibition. The planes left colored smoke in the sky. The highlight of the exhibition, a flight demonstration by J-20 fighter jets. The 4-jet formation staged a series of stunts, including quick turns, low-altitude hovering, and a vertical climb. Another double-jet formation performance displayed the stealth fighter's combat capability. The J-20 is regarded as China's state-of-the-art warplane. The performance lasted 15 minutes. This man said he was impressed by the performance, adding it was a full display of the nation's military strength. Then the Yunyu-20 tanker aircraft showed up. The C-919, China's first self-developed trunk jetliner, also took to the sky today, delighting aviation enthusiasts. Making its debut is the high-altitude, long-endurance GJ-2 stealth attack drone. The airshow will last until November 13th. At least 10 flight performances are scheduled for each day. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
In Hong Kong, stargazers were able to witness an unusual total lunar eclipse and the covering of planet Uranus. A rare blood moon hung in the sky just after sunset tonight. It started at around 6:16 p.m., with the moon partially eclipsing, and by 7 p.m. was to be fully covered by Earth and turning a dark red. This was accompanied by another unique astronomical event. Planet Uranus was to be hidden by the moon from 6:58 to 7:47 p.m. The next total lunar eclipse for Hong Kongers will be in 2025, but the two astronomical events won't take place simultaneously again for another 2,800 years. That's the news. Thanks for watching. Have a good evening. Bye for now.